You want divorce to be made illegal?
Yeah.
Your beliefs are so alien and different to anything that we here on Earth consider normal that we just find them bizarre.
Hang on, I haven't made the point yet. Doesn't the sanctity of marriage also rely on the woman being a virgin? So you wouldn't be able
A breathless newspaper coverage by sharing her incendiary views on modern feminism. The New York Post called her the female Andrew Tate. So she tapped into genuine female pushback to the excesses of wokery, or is she just an attention seeker? We'll find out in a moment. But first, let's take a look at the clip that sent her viral.
A lot of people think I'm insane because I don't think women should vote. Everybody thinks I'm crazy for this opinion. If anything, this is probably my most extreme opinion. 90% of women have been on birth control. 1 out of 3 women has had an abortion. 1 out of 3 women has an STD. Average body count is over 5, so that your average wife has slept with over 5 people.
That's not a lot. That's actually true. As a side note, Superdrug did a study where they were saying in Britain and America, I think it's between 5 and 7 people was the average number of partners, which that seems crazily low to me. Although when you drill down into the numbers, you see that something like 25% of under 35s had been with 15 or more people. So you're like, okay, well, a quarter of people, and then you think about people living in villages, probably only be with 1 or 2. So I suppose it evens out. It seemed low to me. Of course, Pearl has been probably with more than 5 people, but likes to shit all over women and be like, oh, so she's used, she's disgusting. And if you push Pearl on it, she'll go, yeah, I'm used goods. I'm damaged goods, guys. Like, no joke. She did that in the Ethan Klein one, where it's like, well, look, I mean, you're like 26. Are you not 22 anymore? She's like, yeah, my value's gone down. I'm low value, blah, blah. So she will even shit on herself to get at women.
95% of women are not virgins on their wedding days. So I understand the complaint.
OK, well, Pearl joins me now alongside political journalist Ava Santina, who was nodding furiously along there to everything she heard. Right, Pearl, you've be called the female Andrew Tate. How do you plead?
Well, I take it as a compliment. You know, I'm a fan of Andrew Tate.
Of everything he says?
It depends what we're talking about. But overall, I think he's got a good message. I think he's good for young men. OK,
look, you're talking about women predominantly, which is why you've got this big following. And your view is that modern feminism is deeply flawed. I would argue a lot of your proposals, like taking the vote away from women, are deeply regressive. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to remove just from yourself?
Yeah, he's trying to find a way of not going, it's effing mental, Pearl. It's madness. Like, because Pearl just says things, right? Like, especially if you follow her Twitter, it's nuts. It is unhinged. So, like, I don't actually follow Pearl on Twitter, but she will be all over my For You section. Like, I actually quite like, a lot of people hate this, I quite like that all of the head cases appear, not that Pearl's a head case, to be fair, that's not fair, she's not a head case, but all of the people with crazy views appear in the For You section. So it's like, okay, I want to see what all the right-wing nutters are thinking, and left-wing nutters, because being a big liberal, it's great, it'll send me a few of them. It'll send me a few of those nutters as well, but it's mostly like hardcore rightoid people. Sorry, anyway, I've got completely distracted talking about that. But anyway, so Pearl's Twitter is unhinged, right? And she will constantly shit on women, and she does it not just on Twitter, but like in real life. And it has now gotten to the point where she's like, yeah, women shouldn't vote. A woman shouldn't be allowed to vote. And like Piers Morgan's like trying to find a way of going, what? Because when you hear guys say this, it's kind of, it's silly enough in the modern age, right? Like outside of like, fair enough when it's some kind of crazy religious extremist, you're like, okay, his views are nuts. But like, I understand. Like, okay, he believes God has made a woman to serve a man. So yeah, if you believe something that crazy, I see why logically you would then from that not want women voting. But when you just have a woman who has a career, who makes a lot of money, being like, yeah, women shouldn't vote. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like meeting an alien. You're like, what? What do you even think? What do you even believe? Your beliefs are so alien and different to anything that we here on Earth consider normal that we just find them bizarre.
The right to vote.
Well, what happened was I had the same view, right? Back when I started, I was like, why? I found out that only 5% of women wanted the right to vote. And I couldn't figure out, like, why would women not? No, it's true. It's true.
At,
You look it up.
at the time.
At the time.
Because they've been conditioned by men to think that they shouldn't have a vote.
I mean, that's what they say. But, you know, I started.
All the historians, all the people with all of the evidence say, that's kind of what logic says. Like, if you live in a society where most women are barely educated, now maybe, I suppose, by the beginning of the 20th century, the majority were literate, but, you know, was told they were completely different from a man. Like, it kind of makes sense why it was going to be a smaller percentage of the population who felt like that. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure, like, after the First World War, when a lot of the opinion changed, when women had been working in factories making all the munitions, yeah, I mean, they ended up getting the vote. I'd be interested to know, in England, by the end of the First World War, shortly before women got the vote, what the percentages were. Just on the basis that they just spent the last 5 years making bombs and shells and building the first ever tanks. So I'm like, well, do they still think they shouldn't vote?
Reading their writings, right? And what I found out was that the reason a lot of women advocated for it was because they believed it was the beginning of the breakdown of the family. You know, before you became one in marriage, 85% of people were married. And, you know, I hate to say it, but they were right. What has happened 100 years later?
What's that got to do with them having the vote?
Well, it also goes back to responsibility. Again, men are 80 to 90% of the military. They run all of the infrastructures that make society run. So I just think if we want an equal say in society, then be equal. Do 50% of the hard jobs. Be 50% of the military. In the U.S., they're fined $250,000 if they don't join selective service, which is essentially the draft.
Okay, but specifically on the vote, what would having the right to vote have to do with family cohesion, for example?
Well, because again, before you weren't trying to divide a family. It was one family unit. You had one vote for the family. I mean, I don't think it's good for a family to have two votes.
Ava?
It's such a silly way of looking at it. It was like, the thing is, that is how people saw things, because a wife was supposed to be obedient to a husband. So if they believed that, you know, your wife's supposed to obey you, well, the man goes, this is what I'm doing. And the wife shouldn't even be educated enough about politics to really understand what he's talking about, right? And that kind of is how it was back then. But to look at the modern world and the way it is, where most women have jobs, most women are working, and then to compare it to the time where a woman couldn't do any of that stuff, and actually, to be fair, most of the population was working class, and most of the like working class women were working, right? You know, like most of the women, if you go back to the early 20th century, who were working class, were probably in factories, were doing stuff like this because you couldn't just afford to have a stay-at-home mum unless you were like middle or upper class and had more money. So, you know, those people, even back then, clearly should have had a say in society, and the fact that they didn't was hurting them. But leaving aside the moral arguments, right, if we look today at society and go, yeah, there's no reason for a woman to have a say in society. Like, they have jobs, okay? Surely they care how they're treating their jobs, okay? They have children. Surely they care their children going to good schools. They just go, well, just rely on the husband. And the thing is, I don't know anymore how much of what Pearl says she actually believes, right? That how much, because Pearl comes out with a lot of stuff that it sounds crazy, and you think, well, is she just a grifter? So I kind of oscillate between this on this position. Is she just a grifter, or does she believe any of it? But I actually saw Destiny bring this up last night, a couple of days ago, maybe. He was talking to another woman who's been coaching Red Pills or something, I don't know, about and they were talking about Pearl, and he just said, and she said, do you think she's a grifter? And he said, well, look, to be honest, I think you get into this thing going, oh, I have these views, I'm going to exaggerate them for money, but 3-4 years later, just constantly talking about it, it's going to send you mad. And like, is that what's happened to Pearl? She comes on, she already had these conservative views, she plays into it, and now she's kind of at the stage where she kind of just hates women, and like looks down at women, thinks they shouldn't vote, thinks they're all idiots. And I think when people get into that mindset, there's always a subconscious, at least, belief that, well, I mean, the other women, obviously, I'm the clever one, but I really do question that. Like, if you actually put it to Pearl said, okay, here's a button, and women can live in the world you want, and like you can go into a room and no one will know whether you pressed it or not, right? I still think she might press it. You know what I mean? Even if no one would know, I actually think now she does want to live in that world, even though I don't think she'd like it very much. Just given the lifestyle she lives, I think she now maybe does want to live in that red pill world. It's so hard though, because then again, she wants to live in but then again, she doesn't live that lifestyle. So maybe it is all bollocks. Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard to pick out.
Mouth seems to have dropped
No,
about.
do you know what it's sort of like?
I know.
No, it's just sort of a bit galaxy brain. I feel like, the stats that you're putting down are perhaps correct in some universe.
Which stats?
But they just kind of don't really add up. I mean, just to take you back to the to the women's writings that you've allegedly read. I mean,
allegedly?
The time, well,
what do you mean allegedly?
At the time that you're talking about, women weren't really allowed to write. They weren't allowed to go to school.
Yes, they were.
Write.
Yes, they were. That's incorrect. The first female property owner was in the 1600s. The idea that women couldn't work and couldn't.
I'm so sorry, but that would be inherited property.
The first female millionaire was in the late 1800s.
This is there were individual women who could make a lot of money in there were individual women who can make a lot of money sometimes, usually, because they inherited it, occasionally because they'd done something that had made them money. The first black woman in America, I think she lived in the South as well, to be a multimillionaire was in 1920. Right? Because before that, black women had to buy makeup designed for white women and it made them look silly. So she made makeup made for dark skin, for black complexion, etc. And she made a fortune. But are you going to go and say, well, in 1920, there was neither racism nor sexism then in America because there's this one woman? It's like, it's a really common argument and it's just really silly.
Was that inherited?
No, it wasn't. It was self-made.
Yes, it was.
Self-made. Yes, it was.
She never inherited land.
Yes, she did not inherit it.
What law permitted that?
What
law permitted that?
Well, there was no law. I mean, there's always been women that were influential in history.
Let's get on to the vote. So what
I love that Pearl's actually speaking to like a normal woman, a normal, ordinary, not red pill, not terminally online woman with a serious career, journalist, right? And it's just like sitting there listening to Pearl. Like, this is what I meant before about talking about, like it's like talking to an alien. Or like talking to somebody from the past. It's like talking to a medieval peasant, right? Like, right, and it's like, and he's like, oh, that moon up there, it's the biggest piece of cheese there was, right? It's like, okay, really? Yeah, oh, the world, right? It's held up, it's all flat, it's held up by a pillar, and it rises out of hell, right? And I heard there's a big snake goes around the pillar, right? You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, really? Is that, and the snake's, yeah, it's 30 miles long. Oh, what, is that old? Yeah, 30 miles. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? It literally is like that. And you're like, oh, and it's just, you weren't even going to argue with him. So why argue with him? It's just so weird. It's just like, really? And do you think maybe, okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, well, yeah. And it's like, oh, really? And you watch people burned at the stake. Oh, yeah, well, they said something bad about God or been Catholic or something. Yeah, sure. It's like, okay. You know what I mean? It's just like, wow, this guy's views are insane and stupid. And it's like, I actually love this. I actually love watching Pearl. I'd love to see some more red pillars talking to normies. It's actually quite fun when you're watching these red pillars talk to normies because, like, most people haven't heard this online insanity. Like, we've been on the internet for a long time. We've heard so many crazy, mad ideologies that have sprung up over the years, right? We're all used to it. We've heard enough. I've been on the internet a long time. But this is actually, but just showing it to ordinary normies and like putting Pearl with them. This is brilliant. I'm actually enjoying this. This is actually one of the very few clips from Talk TV I've seen that I've actually genuinely liked. Most of them have been some pretty right-wing garbage. Or have been reposted by left-wing people going, oh, look at this right-wing journalist looking silly. So,
I don't understand is, you know, a part of your message, I've researched you today, and hang on a minute.
Okay.
You know, your big push is that you care about men and you don't think that men are getting enough of a say. But
well, I care about
hang
women
on,
too.
I haven't made the point yet.
Okay.
Because of feminism, okay? What I wonder is when you start making calls out like repeal the 19th, women shouldn't be allowed to vote, how is that helping young men? Because these young men have women in their lives, they have mothers, they have sisters, they have teachers, and they turn around, they don't know how to act around women because you're giving them license to be misogynistic.
I wouldn't call it misogynistic. I say be equal. So again, men do all of the
feminists are
well,
saying.
then okay, I'd love for the feminists, please apply for the oil rigs. Please go do the hard jobs in society. They're open, they're hiring because I don't equate for I don't think men or women are.
This is like such a silly argument. First of all, well, there are plenty of hard jobs women do. Feminists argue women shouldn't be excluded from doing those jobs, right? The reason it's mostly men is a lot of it involves some pretty heavy physical labour, so that is like men are bigger and stronger than women. But also, when you've got something that's been traditionally male dominated and it's a job that everybody would love to do, like be a journalist, or not everyone would love to do, but loads of people want to do this. Always going to be oversubscribed. Be a journalist. Be even not even be something famous. Be a lawyer. Be anything like this. Be a business person. Okay, loads of people want to do those jobs. When it's actually a shitty job, not a shitty job, you can earn pretty good money doing it. It's a lot harder to go, hey, let's get little girls who want to grow up and be on an oil rig. Even though I just want to be clear, right, there are women who work on oil rigs, so some do. It's not going to be zero. In fact, I think I've seen a video of it that somebody posted in response of a woman working on a rig.
Equal until we do the equal work. So no, listen. Go apply to be on the oil rigs. Go be a plumber. Go be an electrician. Go be on the front line.
I literally know like women who are electricians. That's not things that like go be on the front line and be a like. I'm sorry, like those jobs are all really important, but it's picking specific areas and being like women are politicians, women are running businesses, women are doing all of these kind of things. It seems a bit silly to go, okay, I'm going to specifically hone in on the few areas where women aren't, the few jobs where women aren't doing things. A lot of them because they involve a lot of physical labor.
Of the military, and then we should have equal rights. But until feminists are willing to do that, I don't believe we should have the freedom without the responsibility.
Okay, well, I don't think that I'm physically built for that. You might be, but I'm absolutely not. You said you were volleyball.
Wow.
You said you were a volleyball player, and so you've got more strength than I do. I don't think.
But
that
I don't have more strength. I don't have more strength than the average man.
I'm not going to take your right away. I
don't have more strength than the average man. But it goes.
That's a really bad argument because, like, again, there are people that do those jobs, but the reason physical strength is important is because on average, the average man is like stronger than the average woman. So if you want to pick out something like working on an oil rig, which requires a lot of moving a lot of heavy machinery, there's probably going to always be oversubscribed by men, just because it's probably going to be easier for the average man to do it than it is for the average woman. But it's like such a silly argument. Women do most jobs, the vast majority of jobs in society, like that you're going to find women doing. And then Pearl's like, well, what about really dangerous mines where you have to carry as much as you possibly can on your back because it's too dangerous to even put a cart down there? And, that's mostly men. So, well, okay. Even the argument with the military is terrible because feminists have campaigned for years to more women in the military, to allow women to, like, get near the top in the military. Women should be allowed on the front lines. That's been a big push for a while. I think in America recently got allowed. I'm not even sure they are in Britain. Right. There's, I mean, your countries like Israel have national service where like everybody has to go in the army, man, woman, whatever. Right? It happens like all over the place. So it's a really bad argument because then, okay, well then women are in the military, then you're fine with it.
Back to go be a plumber. You want to be equal, go be equal.
You also, but you want divorce to be made illegal.
Yes.
Why?
Yes, because I don't think what we have today is really marriage. What is marriage? It's for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. That's what marriage is supposed to be. But feminists have ruined marriage for the people that actually believe in marriage.
How?
When there's a 50% divorce rate and the average marriage is 8 years.
Why is that all down to the women, though?
I didn't say that it was all down to the women.
So why feminists
you asked why I want divorce to be banned.
Yeah.
Can I finish that first? So I'm saying You know, the people that believe in divorce, go be in long-term relationships. Leave marriage for the people that actually believe in, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do us part.
But doesn't the sanctity of marriage also rely on the woman being a virgin? So you wouldn't be able to get married?
What do you mean?
Well, you've spoken quite openly about how you're not a virgin. And so if you want to preserve that sanctity of marriage...
Oh, yes! Bang! Shots fired. The thing is, I have zero sympathy. Pearl does 100% all the shit Pearl does. Pearl deserves this 100%. Like, I'm with this one being like, well, you're supposed to be a virgin. Even though ordinarily I'd be like, oh, that's a bit of a low blow. Right? Like, don't slut shit. But, like, Pearl deserves this 100%. It's like, well, if we're protecting the sanctity of marriage by your definition, I mean, aren't you by your own definition unsuitable? The issue is, and we're going to see right now, so I'm pause ending, but I'm doing it deliberately because it's fun. My prediction here is Pearl will eat that. She might skirt around it. I might be wrong, but I think Pearl's just going to go, yeah, well, I'm damaged. I'm ruined by society.
I think,
I just think that you're upholding standards that you don't actually live by.
And that's a fair complaint. I wish I was. But, we can't go back. I don't know what you want me to say.
No, but I just don't think it's fair that you get to be here and you get to be paid for your views, and you're telling other women that they shouldn't be allowed to.
I think...
Hang on. Okay, if I may, at some stage jump in. Isn't the whole point of being a feminist, though, that women are entitled to have their own views?
Absolutely.
So she's perfectly entitled to her views.
Yeah, but you can't...
You might not like them.
But I'm here to challenge
Isn't she exercising her right as a... Are you a feminist?
No, I am not.
Really?
No, I don't go that far.
You don't want to be a feminist?
No, because I think if feminist...
I never understand why people go, well, I'm entitled to their views. Well, yeah, obviously, that's why we're on a programme discussing it. If we didn't think they were entitled to their views, you'd say they should be arrested or silenced. Or you go, oh, the sort of people that do the cancel culture that would go, oh, Piers, how could you possibly have such an evil woman on? Right? That kind of person is... saying she's not entitled to her views, saying I find your views completely disagreeable and I'm going to come on and debate you on it, like, clearly means you think the person's entitled to their views. They're just wrong.
Just really believed in equality, but you guys don't. I would love for you. There is an oil rig hiring. There is an engineering.
I would actually love to see Ava Santina on an oil rig.
Seriously. There is a building being...
What's that got to do with anything, though? I just don't understand it. Like, yeah, right? I mean, I can find Pearl female builders. Okay. I think, okay, well, listen, men should vote until they do most of the child rearing. Because think the next generation is how we build society. Education policy is so important. It's one of the most important policies. Women do the vast majority of child rearing. Therefore, men shouldn't vote until, men are firing out babies. Hey, once we've got the technology for a man to have a baby, or at least once the woman has the baby, she goes straight back to work. And the man does all the child rearing, then a man can vote. It's like, it's the stupidest saying that. It's just silly. Do you have a stake in society? But it comes back to that question again. Is Pearl a grifter? Or does she believe it? And I think it can actually be both. Like, genuinely, I think it can be both, right? I think she can believe it consciously on the face of it, but subconsciously know she doesn't want to live that lifestyle. Because that Ava woman, what she was saying just then was like 100% spot on. By your own definition, you were not suitable marriage material. Right? It's literally, because by Pearl's own definition, she's not a virgin and she's, in her mind, old. She's actually not old. She's like 25. But she says over 22 is like too old. So, yeah. So I forgot where I was going with that. But no, that's it. Does Pearl actually believe this shit? Or is she grifting? Or is it both? Is it consciously believe, but subconsciously don't really want to live that life? And it's a question I ask of a lot of the red pill women, but Pearl especially more than any other, because I cannot tell if she's grifting or she believes it or both.
Built next to my building, go do it, feminists. Go do it. And me, I'm saying
the same job that I'm doing right now.
When you find the man you want to get married to, are you saying you will be with that man whatever happens the rest of your life?
Yes, for the vows that we're supposed.
So was that from Ruben Hake? Don't hate on the Queen. Sorry, I missed that.
To live.
How do you know you can keep them?
I mean, I think it's a choice. And that's the thing, like women are so willing to leave marriages because they're not happy. This is not about happiness. The most important thing is the children. And the problem is we have a modern society where it's me, my feelings, leave when I feel like it, instead of doing what's best for the kids.
Ava, I've got to say, it's a little bit listening to Andrew Tate where...
Yeah, it's not actually... Just point out, staying together for the kids isn't a good idea, okay? People want to look at, like, divorce as being bad, blah, blah, blah. And like, there are issues for the kids sometimes, yeah, when parents can separate, okay? I'm sorry, I've just met people where the parents have stayed together and it's mashed them up. In my stepdad's case, like, I remember him telling me he didn't want to have people home. He didn't want to, like, be at home. I think it was, like, one of the reasons that he could have, like, had issues with anger, like, not in a really bad way, but quite a shouty guy. Was because there was always shouting at home. His parents were always at each other's throats. They hated each other, right? It's like, I think by the end they were both like cheating on each other. It's just like, why even, like, that's not right for the kids. You're going to hate each other. It's going to be horrible. It's not right for the kids. Even if you want to say, okay, divorce is worse than loving stable marriage, it is not worse than two people who hate each other, who aren't in it anymore, who don't love each other, who are screaming at each other in front of the kids. Like, that is not a good environment for a child, and getting out of that environment is the best thing for the children.
Some of it I really don't agree with. I don't agree with the vote stuff. When I hear things like that, I think there'll be a lot of people, especially older generation women perhaps, who think, you know what, she's got a point.
Well, I mean, I believe in agency, so I think that if a woman is going to look after her children in divorce, that's absolutely fine. I also believe in your right to speak your mind about it. What I don't understand...
I'd like to say, even before the 1920s,
do you know what I mean?
Women could speak openly. This idea that, like, women couldn't talk the last 500 years, there have been women throughout history...
I know, but the American state education system has failed before, and it's failing now.
There have been women throughout history that have read, written, and been very influential in society.
Okay.
So this idea like women could never do it,
do you know what
Yeah, it's not women could never do anything. It's like one or two. Yeah, there was like the odd queen or the odd daughter of a lord who was educated and maybe wrote something very occasionally. It wasn't like women were never had zero involvement in society ever at all under any circumstances. It was just they didn't have that many rights, right? They didn't have rights in the same way. They couldn't. Like, especially as society became more democratic, it became even more noticeable. So probably, to be fair to a medieval peasant woman, it wasn't that noticeable that she didn't have that many more rights than her husband, because he had no rights anyway either. Right? He didn't have free speech, he didn't have freedom of religion, he didn't have freedom of where to work, he didn't have freedom of, he couldn't talk back to the Lord, he had to work on the Lord's fields most of the time, and then he got a few days off to work on his own fields. So, yeah. Probably. So actually, as society's got more democratic and things have gotten better, going back to what Pearl's, like the society Pearl's wants to live in, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. So in 1650, most people couldn't read. Most people weren't writing anything. It was so you say, oh, this woman wrote something. Yeah, most noble women weren't allowed to read and write stuff. Well, weren't allowed to write stuff, right? But maybe their husbands were. Whereas like the average person couldn't read or write anyway, so it didn't matter. But now in modern society, the rights gap between if you weren't allowed to vote, if we had to go back to women obeying men, being in the home, being basically property, it just gets so further and further and further that it becomes actually even more oppressive than it would have been historically. Like, not because it wasn't oppressive then, just because everybody was oppressed by the oppressive society.
I don't understand, though, is when it gets spiteful, okay? Because you put down a few arguments that I think are perfectly, like, you know, they're kind of evangelical and they're Christian, but those are your right to say it. What I don't understand is when it kind of seeps into this sort of, you call women fat, you say that they shouldn't have abortions, you say that they have STDs. You know,
I mean, the question is, are they fat, yes or no? The average American woman is 170 pounds. That's objectively overweight.
I mean, let's be honest, we now celebrate morbid obesity as some kind of body positive thing. And it is complete nonsense. So actually, on that point again, there's a bit of truth in that.
And this is the problem.
How have we come to celebrate morbid obesity as body positive?
Well,
it's nonsense.
We're not talking about morbid obese. I was actually...
Well, hold on a minute. So, I think Piers has interjected with something, I don't know, kind of a non sequitur. That wasn't what they asked. She was like, why do you keep calling women fat and going on about this? The fat acceptance thing is silly. Being fat is unhealthy, but shaming people doesn't help, right? And what I mean by that is like I used to smoke. I mean, I still have a cigarette sometimes, but I used to full-time smoke all the time. Right? People would come up to me and try and shame me, right? But because people won't do it. If you're fat, people will at least be like maybe talk behind your back. Only really people like Pearl who want to score internet points who are going to be like saying it to your face, or someone who's a dick. Whereas when you smoke, people feel they can just come up to you stink, disgusting, ugh, right? It never ever made me want to stop it. Maybe go, you know what? I want to blow fucking smoke in your face, you wanker. Right? It's not going to work. So I think shaming people doesn't work. Especially with the food stuff, because I've seen so many people who are ashamed of the way they look and fat and then eat themselves silly. Oh, I'm fat. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, right. It doesn't make them lose weight, and it makes them hate themselves, which is unnecessary, right? And unhelpful. But I think we're very bad at striking a balance between, hey, if you're fat, don't hate yourself. People can be attractive and be overweight up to a point. That's great. You wear nice clothes. You shouldn't hate yourself. You shouldn't feel terrible. You shouldn't be depressed, right? And also saying it isn't healthy to do this. Again, a bit like smoking. Right? Screaming at people, saying you're disgusting doesn't really work. But, saying, hey, this is really bad for you. This is your right to smoke if you want to smoke, but this is really bad for you. Right? I feel like that's the balance. Hey, not going to make someone feel horrible for being overweight, but make sure everyone's aware that this isn't good for you.
Watching your podcast earlier, and you spoke to someone who was, I would say, probably a size 12, and you called her fat, obese, and a divorcee.
She was fat, obese, and a divorcee.
wasn't.
I mean, I don't know what to say. This is the thing, women, we don't want to live in reality. We don't want to say things that are true. Was she fat? Yes. Was she a divorcee?
You don't talk to guys like that. How many shows are there with a fat guy on and people like, look at you, fat fuck. How are you going to get any women, you disgusting, ugly bastard? Like, no one's... Actually, because if she did, do you know what I mean? Like, why people aren't doing that to men? It's a specific thing that Pearl wants to do to women. Is it grifting, or does she believe it? Like, is she trying to make herself feel better about stuff? It's a lot of the nastiness that comes from Pearl towards other women. You kind of get a feeling like is she making herself feel better about some internal shit? Like some internalized self-hatred or whatever. It's hard to say.
Yes, these things are just objective facts.
Okay, I'm going to have to objectively...
And she insulted me first. They always do.
I'm going to have to objectively end the debate, but it was an interesting conversation. I think we should get you two back together as a matter of urgency. Thank you very much, Pearl. Thank you, Ava.
Okay, so Pearl has done a response video to this. Okay, we'll watch some of this. I may speed it up.
From Piers Morgan's team. And they basically wanted me to go on a show with Piers Morgan. And I was really nervous. I gotta be honest with you guys. Because, I was like, I have a day to prep. I didn't know at the time what the topic was going to be. And I thought, should I take this? Should I not? I don't want to come in unprepared. But I was like, you know what? I'm a huge fan of Piers Morgan.
I don't know.
So I'm going to take the interview. And we're going to do it. So 24 hours, I go from just living my life to being invited onto Piers Morgan. So this morning, I started, what did you say? Oh, okay, sorry. I started my day, oh shoot, hold on, I'm trying to look at the chat. I started my day and they call me and they say that we're going to do topics around feminism, why women shouldn't vote, and banning divorce. I'm thinking this is amazing. I really think women shouldn't vote. I really think we should ban divorce. And I was like, this sounds perfect. So I'm going to react to my time on Piers Morgan. I'm still in the same outfit, so you can see this literally just happened. So let me go here. All right.
That's I get on a genius. I'm going to give Paul some credit there. That is a genius content idea. Okay, so I've just been on Boom on doing the reaction. Straight away. Straight on it. To be fair to Pearl, disagree with everything she did. Kind of think a lot of stuff she says is just kind of, in a way, she's a kind of a bit of a sad, depressing figure in certain respects. But yeah, I've got to respect that. That is straight on it. That's brilliant. Straight, boom. I've done it. You do the interview, you come straight home, you do the content about it, right before anyone else has had a chance to respond. Everybody's going to be watching that, then your response. That is genius. I just have respect for that. That's very good.
The show. And I've never been in his set before, but this room is a lot smaller than you would think. Like, I thought this was going to be this huge newsroom, but it's really not that big. A lot of very nice cameras, though. So
I've heard that before. That, like, it's actually like way when you go on the news or something, it's like way.
Coverage by sharing her incendiary views on modern feminism. The New York Post.
I will say, now they've recently started adding in my first name. And in my opinion, the reporters, not Pierce's team, but they're just doing that because they're trying to like leak out more information about me.
Oh, her first name's Hannah. I knew it was H. Pearl Davis. Or does she just not like Hannah? Because I always wondered, like, Pearl is a very like old ladyish kind of name to call. Do you know what I mean? To call you child in the modern era. She's like 10 years younger than me. I think like she's like 25, 26. She's like 26, isn't she? Right? I'm like 37. So she's like 10 years younger than me. And yet her name's Pearl, which I would usually associate with somebody's great grandma. But the Hannah thing makes more sense. I don't know why I'd never twigged, because I've seen H. Pearl Davis written down repeatedly, and yet never gone, oh, Pearl's a middle name. So apparently I'm also a moron. But like Hannah's a much more modern. I know loads of women called Hannah that are like my age or younger. So yeah, that does make a lot more sense.
My family now, they're like, because when I got on the internet, I made the decision to go by my middle name because I didn't want my family to get involved. But some of these leftist reporters are ruthless. Ruthless, let me tell you.
First of all, unfortunately, all English journalists are just ruthless. It's what's led to our politicians being so absolutely shit. Because unfortunately, the only people who can survive in modern politics are charlatans who don't need to be clever, don't need to be effective, don't need to be good. They just need to be able to go into a discussion, say nothing, repeat the same talking points over and over and over and over again, and be boring enough that nothing weird is going to emerge about them. Most of them aren't boring enough, and loads of weird shit's going to come out about them, because the only way you can get somebody like that is when they're a weirdo and a corrupt liar. But yeah, that's kind of the reason none of them can speak, none of them ever tell the truth. Is largely because our journalists are always lying there, ready to tear them to shreds. Like, you watch American journalists, and if you get them in an interview, like politicians, I even saw like left-wing MSNBC people who were, normally shitting on Trump, and then they got like an interview with Trump and said, oh, Mr. President, I'm very pleased to welcome you. Whereas in Britain, like, right, so you think, and it's just straight on the attack. So that is par for the course with any UK journalist. Also, Piers Morgan is not a lefty. He's not a left-wing journalist. He's, I would say, essentially centre-right, but with some more liberal leanings.
And everyone's called me Pearl for years.
Andrew Tate. So she tapped into
genuine. Fair play. Sorry, she explained the Pearl situation.
Attention seeking. We'll find out in a moment. But first, let's take a look at the clip that sent her viral.
Justin, you know what? You know what's crazy? This is the funniest part of this whole thing. Everyone, this is my number one. This is my number one critique, pushback. Pearl, you're just a grifter. You're saying things for attention. I don't even think you guys understand how much I believe women shouldn't vote. Like, I don't even, guys, this, I will not walk back on.
I think she started to really believe it.
I really do not think women should vote. I could maybe get behind net taxpayers, property owners, something like that. But as a whole, should the majority of women vote? No. No.
A lot of people think
the majority of men aren't plumbers, oil rig people. The majority of men are sat in an office next to the majority of women, right? Or like working in retail next to the majority of women. Right? The percentage of people who are soldiers or working on oil rigs is very low. Do you know what I mean? No. She acts like, oh, well, all the men have to go out. No, maybe 2% of the men have to go out and do that. And the rest of us work indoors.
And I would like to say, so I didn't know what clip they were going to do. Now, you guys have seen some trap interviews I've been on. So I'm kind of like, I don't know what to expect. Because I'm like, what clip can they pull up? I don't know how this is going to go for me. So I didn't have my face here. But before, when they're like, this clip, I'm like, oh no, what clip? But it's okay. This is one of my favorite videos I've made.
Insane, because I don't think women should vote. Everybody thinks I'm crazy for this opinion. If anything, this is probably my most extreme opinion. 90% of women have been on birth control. 1 out of 3 women has had an abortion. 1 out of 3 women has an STD. Average body count is over 5, so your average wife has slept with over 5 people. 95% of women are not virgins on their wedding days. So I understand the complaint.
Oh, you see, I thought they were going to keep playing the video. Okay, so I'm watching the video. So when they cut right to me, I was like, oh shit. Like, I thought they were, because I had a whole explanation for why women shouldn't vote. So I was like, are they going to show? No, they didn't. So I was a bit.
Well, to be fair, like the Pearl, it has got to be a bit weird, right? Going from your stream environment, especially where you control everything, to suddenly being on a news show where everything's short, everything's quick. Because on a stream, yeah, people come on, you talk for hours, and yet when you're talking about, like what a 10-minute, what was it, like 9-minute news segment? It's much snappier. It's going to be point. You say something, she says something, you say something, she says something, Piers says something, done. Right? Which is a very different format to like a podcast or stream or whatever.
A bit taken aback, but no hate. I was just a little like, well.
Paul joins me now alongside political journalist Ava Santina. He was nodding furiously along there to everything she heard. Right, Paul, you'd be called the female Andrew Tate. How do you plead?
Well, I take it as a compliment. I'm a fan of Andrew Tate.
Of everything he says?
So, now, how can you be a fan of anything everyone says? I was thinking about this because they'll be like, do you believe everything? How can I believe everything anybody? It's like if you transcripted my whole life, there's probably things I've said I disagree.
Oh, Jesus Christ. If somebody says, do you agree with pretty much everything they believe? They don't mean, can you just please confirm that there has never been a word out of their mouth that you haven't had even the most minor of quibbles with? Right? They mean, generally speaking, taking their ideology and worldview as a whole, do you basically agree with that? You know what I mean? It's not like, do you agree with everything this person says? No, because he thinks Return of the Jedi is better than Empire Strikes Back, and I don't agree. No, they don't mean that. No, you know what his views are that we're interested in here. Do you agree?
Agree with this whole idea that if you're a fan of someone, you have to agree with every single thing. The first video I saw of Tate was him doing a cheating party, which is a bit, I know they're on the religious thing now, but when I first caught his content, it was not like that. He was literally having a party where he cheated in front of his girlfriend. So, I was even a bit triggered, but overall his message is good. Overall, I think he's been an absolutely phenomenal for young men. I'm going to keep going.
It depends what we're talking about, but overall, I think he's got a good message. I think he's good for young men.
Okay, look, you're talking about women predominantly, which is why you've got this big following. And
I will say, actually, just going back to the format thing, I know I've gone on about it a bit, but I do actually hate the fact that you don't have time for a proper discussion in these things. Piers Morgan even had to interject to say two things. Neither of them really got any points out. And nobody watching this is going to change their mind. Most of the people watching this are going to be British conservatives watching Talk TV. So they're going to go, so they're going to watch this and go, Paul's a bit of a kook. Not really understand why she doesn't want women to vote. Go, well, what about Margaret Thatcher? And then move on. Right? So, not that I would like Paul to convince any of these people, but I just hate the way television news is so anathema to any kind of proper discussion, proper debate, proper analysis of the issues. What Pearl believes is crazy. And I would love to see her with the feminist woman with Piers Morgan for an hour and a half or something. That would be really cool.
Your view is that modern feminism is deeply flawed. I would argue a lot of your proposals, like taking the vote away from women, are deeply regressive. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to remove just from yourself
Okay, so I had some bullet points that I didn't go over. Actually, I'm going to go a little further.
to vote?
Well, what happened was I had the same view, right? Back when I started, I was like, why? I found out that only 5% of women wanted the right to vote. And I couldn't figure out why would women not? No, it's true.
Well, at the time. Because they've been conditioned by men to think that they shouldn't have a vote.
I mean, that's what they say, but I started reading their writings, right? And what I found out was that the reason a lot of women advocated for it was because...
So let me say, in 1870, a group of distinguished women collected 15,000 signatures to urge Congress not to give women the vote. Many other petitions followed. By 1915, hundreds of thousands of women had joined the anti-movement. Many other petitions followed. By 1915, hundreds of thousands of women had joined the anti-movement. The United States was founded as a limited suffrage republic, not as a universal suffrage democracy, which even the ancient Greeks said was nothing more than 51% oppressing 49%, or the tyranny of the majority. The original voting rights were only granted to adult male-led owners. Let me read, hold on. The vote was so unpopular with women that women's rights activists began blocking referendums. And I'd like to shout out Rach for patriarchy. She helped me come up with these. This woman, smartest woman ever. I mean, can't say it's that hard, but smartest woman.
Christ, she cannot help herself. I don't know if people can hear this because she's gone super quiet. But she's like, yeah, smartest woman ever. No, I don't know who really say that. It's like, Pearl cannot stop herself from shitting on women. Like, I feel like she needs some kind of therapy. Because don't get me wrong, I've met conservative, very traditional women who are like, no, it's ungodly, a woman should be in the home raising her children. But they don't hate women, right? Like, they don't hate women. They just think, no, very traditionally, they think women are very important and their role is this. You speak to traditional conservatives and yeah, they have very like regressive views on like, oh yeah, a woman should be in the home, a woman should be a mother, blah, 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 blah. But right, they think, oh, woman's very important. Women, they're not going, oh, women are idiots. Women are morons, right? Like, I know, like, I literally, like, I was raised in, like, Orthodox Judaism. I met, like, Hasidic women, right? And they'll tell you, no, a woman should be in the home. A man should be the run this. The woman's in charge of the home. God makes the man in charge of the religious and business life, whatever. And the woman in charge of... But they're never like, oh, women are idiots. Women are stupid. Women are such morons. Like, they don't do that. They think, oh no, women are very important. Women are just as important as men, but God made them very differently to live in the house and do. But so even like mega religious conservative women don't hate women, and I kind of feel like something's gone wrong with Pearl. If she really believes this and she's not grifting, and I'm starting to think that that's the case, like she needs some kind of help of some description. Not like help. That's mean. I don't mean she's mental. I don't mean it's a mental illness, but in and of itself. But there's got to be some self-loathing, something somewhere going on. Because especially a lot of the shitting on other women, calling them fat, calling them this, calling them that. Like, like the fact, you kind of feel like there's something deeper going on. And like, she should maybe speak to somebody.
Okay. The vote was so unpopular with women that women's rights activists began blocking referendums, asking women if they wanted the vote. They wouldn't even let women vote on whether they wanted voting rights because the few times they did, it was only 4% voted yes. The anti-suffragette movement was far more popular with women. This was written out of history textbooks by feminist activists in the Gender Studies Department. The U.S. was founded as a limited suffrage republic, not a universal suffrage democracy.
This is so like the problem with that with American politics is that, especially in the Federalist Papers, and I think a lot of the other founding documents, when they talked about democracy, they meant in like the Athenian sense of direct democracy, if everybody votes on everything. Whereas when they were saying like, representative republic and all of this, what they actually mean is what we call democracy today, representative democracy. Even though, again, yeah, they in no way believed in universal suffrage. It was white men who own property, which is also something that like a lot of people miss. It's like, yeah, when a lot of these rules were first done, when democracy first started, it wasn't just men. It wasn't even just like, white men. It was men who owned land and property, right? I think it was not until the 19th century in Britain that men who, and I think like the middle to late 19th century, were men who didn't own land could vote, right? And there's in the Putney debates after the English Civil War in the 1650s, when they're talking to, I think this is like late 1640s, where, Colonel Rangebird basically gets up and says, well, everyone in England should have a right to vote. Or sorry, Cromwell gets up and then Cromwell gets up and says, no, only those who own land have a stake in the country. And so only men with land should be allowed to vote. So when Paul's like, oh, but like when it was founded, it was all about, it was all about just like men. It was like, no, it's men with land. So you're actually saying a small percentage of the population should vote. So yes, that is true. When democracy, modern representative democracies all first started, it was just landowning men who could vote. So, but she always leaves that part out.
Only male landowners could vote. Everyone else gained...
What a false Andy. Okay, so she did admit it was only landowners.
Voting rights later. Women voting, ironically, means less freedom. People argue that they think women should vote because they believe in freedom, liberty, and democracy. But in only 100 years of women voting, we have gotten a bigger government with far less liberty because women vote for safety and security over freedom. Suffrage women argued that they enjoyed a lot of privilege and protection granted by men that they would lose if they became a voting bloc. So,
I'm sorry, a lot of these things are like pretty universally popular. Since the Reagan era in America, there's been a lot more hostility to the big government. Idea of like social care, this kind of stuff. But like a lot of that comes from the kind of 1980s, well, not 1980s, but that kind of free market ideology comes from Milton Friedman, from all these kinds of people that spread out. Supposedly when Reagan first ran for president or ran in the Republican primary, everyone thought he was a nutter, right? Because people weren't ready in 1970 or whatever for this kind of hardcore free market deregulate. But over the, it wasn't until culture changed and things changed that you got this ideology. So most people, and it's not just been, it's just women who vote for social security, who vote for who want universal healthcare, especially in places like Britain. A lot of that was fought for by trade unions who were mostly men, to be fair, because it was a lot of them are quite sexist and still are. It's one of the reasons the Labour Party's never had a female leader, because a lot of those old trade union leaders have a tendency to see women as being the ones that make the sandwiches, because that's how they were growing up, which is messed up. But those men, so a lot of that was men. So this idea that it's women who want this, it's no, a lot of those. Pearl herself should be saying, but all of that was fought for by men. So, that's actually a point in her favour, that it was mostly men fighting for that kind of stuff, not voting, but actually fighting, actually striking, actually.
Let me go. I'm telling you guys, Rach for Patriarchy. I have an interview with her on my channel. She's so good, so good. I want to read you some of the privileges that women had special privileges New York women have secured under male suffrage. Married women were not required to contribute to the support of the family. All these women whining about working, okay?
They had no money. Most of them had no money, right? Or they were poor and had to work so their children couldn't eat otherwise.
Women may work, earn money, and spend it as she pleased. So this whole narrative that women couldn't work or own property is false, okay? Women in the 1600s, the first female landowner was in the 1600s. There was many...
It doesn't matter. We're not about no one's saying, okay, well, if women's oppressed, that would mean basically women are just lying naked, chained to a bed, firing out babies. Nobody's saying that or believes that, right? It's just that, they had fewer rights than men. They couldn't do what they want, whereas men could do what they want. That's the argument. This argument, no, but look, the woman could have a job. Yeah, of course they could. Most women have worked for the majority of history. You go back to the Middle Ages, most women weren't noble women sat at home doing embroidery. Most women were peasant women with no rights. You have a baby, you better be back at work straight after. You see it in the artwork. In the Middle Ages, you see the peasant woman in the field with the thresher. She's got a baby and a papoose tied round her. Because she didn't get days off. There's no maternity leave. There's nothing. Do you want to eat or do you not want to eat? You have to go out and work for your Lord. Work straight in the field. You had your baby in the morning, back out. Out you go. So most women have always it wasn't that, they weren't allowed to do anything. They were locked in the home and chained to the floor and they couldn't eat. No, they just had less rights than men. It was an attack on their freedom. They did, right? Everybody should be treated as an individual and have the same rights.
Feminist writers that can and did influence politics in the 1700s, 1800s. It's crazy. These feminists will quote these writers and then act like women couldn't talk. We could always talk. Sorry. Okay. May own real and personal property and dispose of it or sell it without her husband's knowledge or consent. So she can own property. How crazy is that? Okay. Husband cannot dispose of real estate without wife's consent. So how crazy is this? The women can own property without the man's consent, but the men cannot own property without the women's.
That's not true. It said it can't dispose of property without the woman's consent because because you can't say I'm selling your house that the woman lives in because she's buggered, right? You also I'd like more investigation into those laws because a lot of those laws, which is also, by the way, the reason you get the ideas of alimony and things like this and 50-50 in divorce, was because women had nothing, right? It's well, you can't just throw her out onto the streets. So if I own a house and I leave my wife, I can't actually just sell that house and throw her out on the streets because how's she going to get a new home? It's the same reason in English law, and I think it's the same in America. You have to keep a woman, or you have to keep them in the manner to which they become accustomed. Because the idea was that, if you're a rich guy and you have a wife, well, she can't do anything once you get divorced or whatever. So you have to make sure she's used to being a rich lady. You have to make sure she can still live the life of a rich lady, right? So that's where a lot of that comes from. So this is the worst of what she's saying. She's talking such nonsense that she's missing that there are actually within here points in the red pill favour or points in her favour.
Consent. Wife cannot be required to pay the husband's bills, even if contracted for support of the family. Husband must pay wife's bills, whether for the family or for her own personal expenses. How nice would it be if your husband is legally required to take care of you? You know what I mean? And this is why men were like, okay, we need to require more because wife may have millions and cut her husband off without a cent. Does this sound like oppression? Like, our lives were so hard. Husband cannot cut off wife without dower right. If a husband owns a home, he cannot sell or mortgage it without the wife's consent. If a woman owns it, she may do as she pleases with it and without consulting him at all. If a husband fails to support his wife, guys, he could be arrested and prosecuted criminally. Wife cannot be compelled to support her husband under any circumstances, no matter how rich she may be, nor how poor he would become. All these women complaining about 50-50. Guys, if we just didn't vote, your husband could go to jail for not taking care of you. But the feminists came in and said, hey, well, let's be equal. Let's be equal to men. A father cannot by will appoint a guardian for minor children against the wishes of the mother. All women are exempt from jury duty and military service. So this idea that women were just these oppressed creatures that had the most horrible lives is just false. It's false. Stop saying things that are not true. We were not oppressed. How are you oppressed when, okay, imagine, guys, we're back. Okay.
Well, yeah,
Okay, sorry, I need to go back to my...
Do you want food now?
No, thank you. I love you. You look beautiful. Right. So I don't know. Like, so sorry. So I just. Which like when we're not oppressed, it's like just like look at like what they could and couldn't do. Look at how they were treated. Like never. It doesn't matter what your position is. Even when you're looking at history, when you're looking at something like this or science or anything, it's not about going and getting two little factoids, right? That don't. Right, two little factoids that agree with you, right? You often hear the I think anecdote, the plural of anecdote is not data. Well, okay, also, data is not a singular word. It is a plural. It's a plural of datum. When you get a datum, right, like women were, it wasn't illegal for a woman to own property in the 17th century. Okay. I didn't think it was, to be fair. It's not illegal for, it's not illegal in 1860 for a woman to work in a factory. I know that. When you're like, well, if a man divorced his wife, he couldn't just sell the house she was living in. So it's like, yeah, but we need to look at everything. You're giving me like a couple of random, unconnected little factoids, right? Let's look at the whole situation. Firstly, they couldn't vote. Now, the reason voting rights are important is because you have a stake in society. You live in society. You are affected by society. It's not to do with, well, are you a plumber? Right, like all the nonsense she was coming out with earlier. Well, what about why aren't they in the military? It's like even if you're a housewife, right, or a house husband these days, right, you have a stake in society. You have children. It matters how they're educated. Okay, you live in a house. It matters like what the level of housing taxes. It matters how much like energy bills cost. It matters like what food standards are. You trying to feed your family? Okay, like let's even look at traditional marriage. You've got the woman, she's making the food. She still has all of it. Even in the traditional marriage, she still has all of the. She still has so many areas in which she has a stake in society, and thus the fact that she like historically couldn't vote was massively oppressive, right? Otherwise, imagine if you didn't have to work, but your wife has to make every single decision for you. Imagine you could stay at home and you have to just look after the kids and do all of that kind of stuff. And especially if we're going back to pre-women's suffrage, there's no washing machines, there's no vacuum cleaners, there's none of that. It's all by hand. Right? When you dry the clothes, you have to take them out of the tub that you've been washing them in, and then you have to put them through these rollers. I can't remember what it's called, a mangle or something. You have to roll. I remember we used to go to a museum at school. They used to take us once a year. It was pretty easy to take the kids to look at all Victorian cleaning stuff, right, for a day. Eat stuff a day. Anyway, right, you watch it, it's like, and to get that, there's hours and hours of work, right, and then you have no say and no right to vote, and you're not allowed to make any decisions. Would that not seem oppressive? Like, as a guy, right, would that not seem oppressive? That would seem oppressive to anyone. You have to do all this housework, number one. And number two, you don't have a say in how the country's run, what goes on, the world your children are growing up in, the quality of the food you're eating, the taxes you're paying on your house, the tax you're paying on like just goods and services. It's nuts just to say that they...
Imagine, we're back in the Stone Age, okay? The land is like empty and they say, okay, let's come together and build a society. And obviously, women cannot contribute the same way men do. So the men say, okay, we're going to...
This is going to be painful for a woman because I know it's not just that she's going to say stuff about men and women I don't agree with. She's about to go into I suppose anthropology, and she's just going to guess, and she's not going to back up any evidence because in hunter-gatherer societies, okay, women gathered, right? Firstly, there hasn't been a human society where women didn't make the majority of the clothes, even today. So in all human societies, always women make most clothes. So, which are essential, especially when you're living in the fucking ice age. Yeah, clothes are really important, right? So that's number one. Number two, right? Women were gathering. So they were going out and gathering all the berries and shit while the men were out hunting. Most hunts, because it's the Stone Age, we're not talking about guys with guns or even bows and arrows. We're talking about guys with a sharpened wooden spear, right? Maybe a little flint head on it. And you've got to peg it at the animal, right? So in a lot of cases, most hunts are unsuccessful. So a lot of the time they're just relying on the women for food. So, but to put forward, and again, it's not even that I don't agree with the views on men and women in this. It's that she's guessing. It's not that she's got, at least the other stuff, she had that, what she was saying was true. It was just the conclusions she's drawing is stupid. And she's not looking at the whole, she's not looking at it in the round, right? Here, she's just making shit up. And people do it so much. It's not just her. The reason it pisses me off is, right, my master's, I did proper scientific research, right? It was really fucking hard. It takes hours. And I wanted to do that for a career. It didn't end up happening. Now I'm a software developer. But I see so many people, like, I know how hard it is to do science. Okay, you can't guess at it. People guess at history. People get at biology, which is what I studied, right? And that drives me mental. Here's Pearl's guessing at anthropology, right? Just the information's there. People have spent years working on it to get you the information. Don't fucking guess. You don't know.
Build the buildings, we're going to do the plumbing, we're going to do the electricity, get you the internet, make this fully functioning society. And obviously we need protection to protect you guys and anyone in the society. So let's come together, form a military. And then the women don't do any of this. And then say, give me equal rights. Well, my plea to feminists is if you want to be equal. Go do what a man does. And I will say, I am not equal to men. Because and this is the other thing that feminists do. They think they're better than men because they make more money. You know, I couldn't even do what I'm doing without this microphone that men invented.
How did you know? Like, that was a guess as well that men invented, that men made the microphone. Did they? How do you know? Like, I mean, like, it's in a modern design team. Like, probably, like, there were quite a few women working on it. It's usually projects. You mean the CEO's a man? Does she know the CEO? Sure, whatever the fuck a microbrand is. But even leaving that to one side, women weren't allowed to do half of that stuff, right? And actually, she got this argument from Andrew Tate. I've seen him say this, where he said, "Oh, a woman will fuck anything up. You put her doing anything, even if she's a businesswoman and she's running a business that she started. Men built society." So it's just like it's painful. It genuinely is painful sometimes to watch. When you're like, she won't. And this goes back to what I was saying before about is Pearl okay? She built a podcast. She's done something so successful. I'm trying to build a stream. It's really hard. I'm probably never going to be as successful or as good at it as she is. And she's like, and she's still shitting on herself. Like, did I invent this mic? No. Oh, I'm a geezer. It doesn't prove anything. Did the biggest streamers, like, I don't know, like, did the biggest streamers, like even the really big ones, like XQC, all these people, did they invent the microphone? Did they invent the computer? No. It's like, it's such a stupid argument. And, like, I understand why, like, a pimp who traffics women across borders like Andrew Tate would think this way. I do not know. I just don't know what's going on with Pearl. It's like, to shit on women and not be a woman, I just imagine feels very, very differently to being a woman and shitting on women, right? It's like, if I started shitting on men, or like, okay, it's like, right, I'm a Jew, right? If I started shitting on Jews all the time, I think after a while I'd probably start to hate myself. Like, I don't see, if I properly believed all the Nick Fuentes, like, secret conspiracy, this, that, and the other, and I kept saying it all the time, and I'm trying to convince people that Jews run the world, that we're all evil, like, how long before I start to despise myself?
Building that men built, with the plumbing that men put in, with the electricity that men put in. Feminists are big whiners. They are big, big whiners. They just want to whine about everything. Oh, shit. Wait, what did I do? Okay.
They believed it was the beginning of the breakdown of the family. You know, before you became one in marriage, 85% of people were married. And, you know, I hate to say it, but they were right. What has happened 100 years later?
What's that got to do with them having the vote?
Well, it also goes back to responsibility. Again, men are 80 to 90% of the military. They run all of the infrastructures that make society run. So I just think if we want an equal say in society, then be equal. Do 50%.
We've seen all this. I'm just fast forwarding it.
It's like intimidating. I'm like, hi, Piers.
Have to do with family cohesion, for example.
Well, because again, before you weren't trying to divide a family. It was one family unit.
And like, how is that? How can you not divide a family when one person's voting left and one's right? Wouldn't it make more sense to come together as a family and say...
Personally, I think people, generally speaking, tend to marry people who have at least similar political views to them. Like, there might be differences, but even if they do, why would that make you, like, leave each other? Like, I mean, my wife is kind of liberal. She's probably more left-wing than me, but I don't know. I've always kind of found, like, conservative ice queens quite attractive, right? I didn't see why that would make me hate her if I was dating a conservative woman and she was, like, some big, posh, like, ice queen, like conservative. I don't think I would just hate her because we don't agree. But I had some great discussions. Very passionate lovemaking afterwards. Sorry.
This is who we're voting.
You know what I mean? Like, the argument that gets very heated, and then next thing you know, I think it leads to another.
Or is it better for a family to say, you know what, let's have the husband and the wife argue over politics?
One vote for the family. I mean, I don't think it's good for a family to have two votes.
Ava, your mouth seems to have dropped about.
Do you know,
I know.
It's just sort of a bit galaxy brain. I feel like, the stats that you're putting down are perhaps correct in some universe.
Are perhaps correct. Do you know what irritates me about the left? This is what I realized when I was on H3. When they say, where are your stats from? They're just trying to derail you from what you're talking about.
No, you're trying to say, where are you getting that from? So you've got a figure. I'm not really sure it's true. Right. Like, say I went to Pearl and I said, oh, well, actually, they showed that women are 60% better at being soldiers than men. That's not true, obviously. But like, there is no study. But let's say I said that. She would go, well, wait, where are you getting that information from? Because she doesn't think any woman could be a soldier, right? So, like, that just seems such a normal question. It's such an...
We're like questioning it. Because here's the thing. If they wanted to in good faith, I could get them all the stats that I'm using before the show. I could give them links to every single one. But, we talk for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes it takes a second to recite it off the top of your head. But they don't care about truth. They just want to say, oh, we don't like your facts. Not those facts. And they'll say, those are made up. And then even when you say, oh, well, give me a second, I'll get it to you. Then they're like, oh. And they just look for anything to discredit what you're saying. It's not about truth.
Which stats?
They just kind of don't really...
That is the point of debate. If I bring stats to you, if you're like a good debater, if you're good at having these discussions, you're going to question me. You're going to attack my stats. You can say, well, where's that coming from? Why do you believe that? And then we're going to unfortunately people aren't, because people just go, well, do you know 7 out of 10 such and such do this? Oh, really? Well, what about this other thing that's, and they're never going to have an actual proper discussion of data. Right? That is why we should be teaching kids in school to understand stats. We should teach kids to understand statistics. And then you wouldn't come out with bollocks, because people on all sides do it. It's not just Pearl. This isn't a Pearl attack. Everybody does it. Everyone talks bollocks using 2 or 3 stats. Politicians do it. Everybody does it. And it's like, if we just understood statistics, you know what? If we just understood statistics, people get lied to a lot less, right? Because there's so many people, media people, politicians, who want to do exactly what Pearl does. The one or two little factoids, and try and like tell you and try and get you to believe whatever they believe, right? Whereas if people learn in school how statistics works, how to read data, you wouldn't actually have this. You wouldn't actually have these problems.
Add up. I mean, just to take you back to the to the women's writings that you've allegedly read. I mean,
allegedly read, lady. I'll give you the link.
Yeah, but to be fair, when you're saying you've allegedly read them, you mean like you've actually sat down and you've read these women's writings, not I read a little quote, which is what I suspect. I don't suspect Pearl's like sat down and read through all of this. Because again, I'm not going to keep complaining about it.
At the time that you're talking about, women weren't really allowed to write. They weren't allowed to go to school.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. That's incorrect. The first female property owner was in the 1600s. The idea that women could
look it up. First female property owner. Look it up. First female millionaire. If women were so oppressed, how?
Okay, that's actually, by the way, not true, unless she means in America. Unless she means in America, because Elizabeth I was the fucking queen. And she died in 1603. So, I mean, I suppose that wasn't the 1600s, but she was queen and her sister was queen before her. These were people with power of life and death. Both of them had people burned at the stake. Mary went insane and had loads of people burned at the stake, learning of the name Bloody Mary. largely because she couldn't have a baby with Philip of Spain, desperately loved him. He despised her and thought she was gross, but wanted to have a son on the throne. She went mental, thought she was pregnant, turns out she was psychosomatic, so she tried to burn every single Protestant in the country, going completely mad. Yeah, that's why monarchy's fucked. Because if they go mental, you're in real trouble. But yeah, so that's not true. They weren't the first queen. I mean, Matilda was probably won the first queen. I think she had ruled for a year, but that was in like the 12th century. Like women who were noble could definitely own property. I know that during the Black Death, when like half the population of Europe died, that was actually a big thing that the church started to panic about, because women actually got rights. Just because they had to. Women had to work. Women now had to, like, even noble women, now they were running households. Because, well, the husbands died, the sons died, his brothers have died. It's like, well, okay, the only one who can be in charge of the land and everything is the woman. Right? Because they were never going to give it to a peasant, right? It was, or to somebody from a different family, because that could start some huge conflict, right? Or at least big argument amongst nobles or whatever. So, I don't think what she's telling is the truth. I think she Googled it. I think she got a little factoid. And it's like, what I'm saying helps her more. She'd be like, well, women have always owned property. What about, I mean, in the wars between Stephen and Matilda, Matilda had a huge army that she was fighting her over England for. They was fighting against Stephen. This was in the 12th century. But because Bill hasn't looked at the data, because Bill doesn't know anything, because she's just got a little couple of factoids, right? She actually doesn't even know this, and he's talking bollocks.
Did Joan of Arc? She was an influential woman in the 1500s.
When she could make a better point.
Cleopatra. Like, there are examples of women being very influential in history, but it was a different culture, guys. Women in general, they wanted to raise a family. They wanted children. That was the culture. And just because the culture has changed doesn't mean our biology does. So, it's just, crazy.
Work and
Again, most women have always worked, because most women were peasants. Like, maybe less so in ancient Rome, because, I don't know, they all had slaves, so if you just count Roman citizens and ignore slaves, ignore all the slave women, then maybe, I don't know enough, maybe that's true. I don't actually know that, so I don't even know that. But, like, certainly, you go back to Middle Ages, we go back to, certainly, she brought up hunter-gatherer societies, we go back to the Industrial Revolution, where most people are working in factories. I think probably the majority of women have always worked, because the majority of women have been poor, right? We just hear about the upper-class women, because that was who was being written about.
So sorry, but that was inherited.
The first female millionaire was in the late 1800s.
And was that inherited?
No, it wasn't. It was self-made. Yes, it was.
C.J. Madam Walker. Look it up.
Self-made.
Yes, it was. She did not inherit it.
What law permitted that? What law permitted that?
Well, there was no law. I mean, there's always been women that were influential.
Let's get on to the vote. So what
She's like, oh no, this doesn't go with my narrative. Let's move on.
I don't understand is, a part of your message. I've just, researched you today.
This is just.
Hang on a minute.
Okay.
Your big push is that you care about men and you don't think that men are getting enough of a say.
Sometimes it's like, it doesn't agree with your narrative. All Pearl does is selects things that agree with the narrative and then kind of be like, about it.
The things that, this is the crazy thing.
I'd love to debate it.
The things that I advocate for benefit men and women. So all of these people that say that I hate women, I'd like to see their receipts. Where are the charities that you guys work with that benefit women? What are you doing that benefits women? Where are your receipts? Because I swear to God, these women that want to play, oh, you don't like women, da-da-da-da-da. What have you done? I'll tell you something I did. There was a big girl on my show. I just sponsored 3 months of workouts out of my own money. 3 months.
Gives a shit. It's like such a minor thing. I just thought Pearl was going to be like, hey, because I actually donate to these rape crisis centres, and I donate to this battered women's thing, and I donate something that helps mothers raise their children and stay in the home and blah, 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 and not have to go out to work, that confers with her ideology, right? But she's like, hey, this woman, she was fat, and I paid for her to get fucking, to do some press-ups. How, and you say I hate women. It's like, what? What? That's not anything. That's one woman. Doesn't even like specifically helping women.
I said, hey, I'll sponsor you. Let's help you fix this. Where are my critics and detractors? What are they doing to help women? It's like it's always the biggest people doing goddamn nothing.
Point yet, because of feminism.
Well, I think they're detracting from people like Pearl, which at least that helps stop society. Yeah, stop women losing all their rights. Not that Pearl's ever going to succeed or achieve anything that'd be preposterous, but still.
Okay, what I wonder is when you start making calls out like repeal the 19th, women shouldn't be allowed to vote, how is that helping young men? Because these young men have women in their lives, they have mothers, they have sisters, they have teachers, and they turn around, they don't know how to act around women because you're giving them license to be misogynistic.
I wouldn't call it misogynistic. I say be equal. So again, men do all of that. Well, then, okay, I'd love for the feminists, please apply for the oil rigs. Please go do the hard jobs in society. They're open, they're hiring, because I don't equate for, I don't think men or women are equal until we do the equal work. So no, listen, go apply to be on the oil rigs, go be a plumber, go be an electrician, go be on the front lines of the military, and then we should have equal rights. But until feminists are willing to do that, I don't believe we should have the freedom without the responsibility.
Okay, well, I don't think that I'm physically built for that. You might be, but I'm absolutely not. You said you were
Wow,
a volleyball.
wow.
You said you were a volleyball.
Do you see how the left, when they're losing a debate, they're like, well, you might be. They always go personal. And you'll notice, guys, recently I've triggered the older women on Twitter. The old crazy ladies with their cat. Because I said old women are uglier than young women. And what do? Well, I'm hotter than you, someone's wife and mother. Can you imagine having a mom? I'm more traditional than you, lady. I never. Anyways.
I just like putting this up. This is from like feminist talk, which is just like, this is literally examples of feminists in the 1980s being like, yeah, we're opposed to the reinstatement of compulsory registration, right, for anyone, so against the draft generally. It's like, the voluntary armed service is of higher quality than the draft service, and would be even more so if discrimination against women, if it were free of discrimination against women and minorities. Discrimination against women and minorities produces in the armed services exactly what it produces in society as a whole. Wasted skills, talents. So, right, I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm just pointing out that it took me 4 seconds to find feminists arguing women shouldn't be in the army. Literally, I just went, hang on a minute, women fight army, feminists want women to fight in the army. Boom. So, I don't even believe that Pearl hasn't seen some of. This is what happens when you're like, no, that doesn't help me, doesn't help me. Oh, the first woman to own property, completely wrong, by the way, I think. Unless she means in America, which at the time would have been in colonies. Like, that's all that you do. You pick out little factoids. You don't actually look for stuff, right? And I realise what I showed then was a factoid, but I'm just kind of raising the point that she hasn't like properly looked. We can go into the number of feminists and various feminist arguments if we want to spend a whole day going to what extent do feminists want women to be in the military, right? Just to avoid accusations of hypocrisy.
The ideas. Is repealing the 19th a good thing? Well, what about you, Pearl? You. They would do this to Kevin Samuels all the time. And because they don't have a good argument.
And so you've got more strength than I do. I don't think
I have more strength than the average
take your rights away.
I don't have more strength than the average man. But again, it goes back to go be a plumber. You want to be equal, go be equal.
But you want divorce to be made illegal.
Yes.
Why?
Yes, because I don't think what we have today is really marriage. What is marriage? It's for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. That's what marriage is supposed to be. But feminists have ruined marriage for the people that actually believe in marriage.
How?
When there's a 50% divorce rate and average marriage
Why is it all
is
down
8
to the
years.
women, though?
I didn't say that it was all down to the women. You asked why I want divorce to be banned.
Yeah.
Can I finish that first? So I'm saying, the people that believe in divorce, go be in long-term relationships. Leave marriage for the people that actually believe in for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part.
Doesn't the sanctity of marriage also rely on the woman being a virgin? So you wouldn't be able to get married.
What do you mean?
Well, you spoke.
Yeah, I have to lie. This threw me off. I was like, I didn't know we were going to talk about,
Yeah, the fact that you're a complete fucking hypocrite and you don't live your life. Yeah, you should be ready for it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, the fact that she's like, I didn't realise we're going no, to be fair, she might feel like, hey, it's okay. Let's see what Bill says. No.
I know, even Piers. I was like, all right. And look, when did I say that virgins shouldn't get married? Or non-virgins shouldn't get married. If anything, I would advocate for all women to get married.
Yeah, but it's just by Pearl's, like, according to Pearl's worldview, she should be a virgin. She should be out there trying to find a husband. She should not be doing a career. Like, she has a wealthy family who can pay for her to do her own stuff. She shouldn't be doing a podcast. It's just, do you see what I mean? She'd be waiting for a husband, and if her husband says he's okay, letting her go out and do all of this, right? But, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, I do think she believes a lot of it, even if it started as a grift, even if some of it's a grift. But, at least on a subconscious level, she understands that she doesn't want to live that way. That it's actually shit to live that lifestyle. that she advocates for. We're not talking, again, we're not talking traditional relationships. We're talking women believing they're pieces of shit, not having a right to vote, not being able to go anywhere, do anything, right? Own property.
You're not a virgin. And so if you want to preserve that sanctity of marriage,
I
just think they're upholding standards that you don't actually live by.
And that's a fair complaint. I wish I was. But, we can't go back. I don't know what you want me to say.
But I just don't think it's fair that you get to be here and you get to be paid for your view.
Okay, let's break this down.
I'd like to know if Piers Morgan made some kind of symbol so he could get that little eyebrow raise in. Because they went cut to him and he did that, and I just feel like either the director was like, or he just went, you know what I mean? Because it's too. It doesn't matter. This is another issue with like a lot of. I like to mainstream media because I think people then go and read what alternative media and believe shit like what people like Pearl say. But a lot of like talk TV, a lot of the way they do things, it's all sensationalism. This is why somebody like Piers Morgan can be so successful as a journalist. It's all sensationalism. It's all these silly little, you know what I mean? These looks, these things. They just want to get them on, get them to have a fight, get them off. Right? No real discussion. Right? No proper analysis.
Now, is the message to women that are virgins, and that's what I should have said, is the message to women that are virgins, should it be wait till you're married or have sex? What is the better message?
The better message, I would argue, is have sex if you want to. I personally don't think. I think if you're very devoutly religious and you're a virgin and you marry a virgin, it goes regardless of what sex you are. If you marry a virgin and you're a virgin, fine. I think otherwise, it's just better to get some experience. It's better to, not like in a crazy way, you don't have to go out banging dozens and dozens and dozens of people, right? But you learn what you want. Like, if I hadn't been with people historically, I wouldn't know what I want. You don't learn the kind of sex you want. You don't learn the kind of relationship you want. Have some relationships. Have casual sex if you want. I enjoy it. I don't think that's actually 100% necessary. If you're the sort of person that just wants to be in serious relationships and only sleep with somebody, then fine. But I think try a few relationships, try a few things. If you just rush into marriage with a virgin, especially if the other person isn't a virgin, I think you're going to fuck up and you're going to end up not happy. Maybe you'll be happy. I'm not saying it's never happened, but I just feel like, yeah, there's a high risk. It's high risk.
They always attack me because they can't attack the argument.
You're telling other women that they shouldn't be allowed to.
I think, and the crazy thing is, if it wasn't for feminism, I probably would have been focused on starting a family when I graduated high school. It was looked down upon, to be honest. Like, nobody thought you wouldn't go to college. And once I found out that the rate of women going to college is inverse with the rate of women having children, meaning as women get more educated, the less children they have, I realized that actually college is feminism, where it's teaching us to be focused on our careers instead of our families. So, I think this information is good for people to know. I wish that I knew this stuff at 16. And yet, their rebuttal is like, well, you're not a virgin. It's like, okay, I wish I was. I don't know. Like, I can't undo it, lady.
Hang on. Okay, if I may, at some stage jump in. Isn't the whole point of being a feminist, though, that women are entitled to have their own views?
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. Thanks, Piers.
So she's perfectly entitled to her views.
Yeah, but you can't.
might not like them.
Rachel.
Again, I said this earlier. I just hate that argument because it's like, aren't I entitled to the views? Like, yeah, at which point did she said it should be illegal for her to have views is bad? Tried to silence her. Like, saying someone's not entitled to her views would be like a cancel culture thing. Oh, I'm not going on Talk TV again as long as Piers Morgan's on when he has Pearl Davis. That's saying she's not entitled to her views. And going, you're wrong, I'm going to debate you, is entirely respecting the other person's right to their views. Because now I respect that you have that right. Now I want to engage with you.
Can you call in at the end of this stream? You should call in. Text me if you can call in.
Isn't she exercising her rights as are you a feminist?
No, I am not.
Really?
No, I wouldn't go that far.
You don't want to be a feminist?
No, because I think if feminists really believed in equality, but you guys don't, I would love for you. There is an oil rig hiring. There is an engineer.
I would actually love to see Ava Santina on an oil rig.
No, seriously.
Again, like, oil rigs, personally, there are women who work on oil rigs, but it's majority men. It's about engineering. Like, women keep trying to get into engineering. There's loads of fucking women now doing engineering. It's a terrible example. But again, most men don't do those jobs. But men aren't a collective. People are individuals. I've never been in the army. Sometimes I feel a bit guilty that I've never done something like that. That, like, not because I want to kill or be in a war, but because you know, you want to like do something for like people around you, or just like do some, you know, you feel like other people are going, other people risk their lives. Like, fair enough, a lot of the wars are complete bollocks. So, you know, so I wouldn't want to go and like kill a load of random people in Iraq for no reason. But you kind of feel like, yeah, other people are going and risking their lives and I'm doing nothing. But that's most men. Most men aren't in the army. Most men aren't on oil rigs. Most men are in offices or shops. Okay, because those are most of the jobs in 21st century, like Western society, right? It's shops. It's, right, people are working in shops. People are working, right, men and women. People are working in warehouses, men and women. People are working in, probably a majority, working in offices. Again, men and women, right? Very few people on oil rigs. Some people in factories. Unfortunately, manufacturing's taking a nosedive. But again, lots of factories like certainly manufacturing, like very diverse. I think maybe depends what type of manufacturing as to whether it's more female dominated. Like clothes manufacturing, we discussed that earlier. Like tends to be female dominated. Maybe if we were talking about car manufacturing, I would imagine it was more male dominated. Still, I don't know. I would assume so. So. It's just not true. It like what she's saying, just like flat out is so silly. It's like, well, there's these couple of sectors that are dangerous or whatever that men are involved in, but women aren't. I mean, okay, but like shitloads of women die in childbirth and have done historically. So it's where she's like, women are important, like women aren't important. Again, it's the thing of going through the little factoids. It's not just Pearl that does this, again, it's everybody would always be doing this. The little factoid, right, that they then regurgitate that is meaningless, right? Is meaningless because we've not looked at the whole picture.
There's a building being built next to my building. Go do it, feminists. Go do it. And me, I'm doing the same job I'm doing right now.
When you find the man you want to get married to, are you saying you will be with that man whatever happens the rest of your life?
Yes, for the vows that we're supposed to live by.
How do you know you can keep them?
I mean, look, I think it's a choice. And that's the thing, like women are so willing to leave marriages because they're not happy. This is not about happiness. The most important thing is the children. And the problem is we have a modern society where it's me, my feelings, leave when I feel like it, instead of doing what's best for the kids.
Ava, I've got to say,
that's not best for the kids though if they've got to grow up and have a shit life too. How's it good for the kids where we live in a society where, okay, you could get married, be super unhappy, and then the rest of your life shit? Then that's true for men, that's true for all of your children, that they can end up with someone they don't love. They can be super unhappy, and then you're saying that they shouldn't be able to leave them and should just have to stay together. So, you know, it's for the kids, it's for the kids. Okay, well, if you know what Pearl would want, or at least claims she would want, it's women at least be having kids at 22. Well, what, so by the time you're 45, most of your kids have gone. Right, your kids are left home. Right, they're now working, they're now doing their own thing, but you still can't get divorced. Oh no, for the kids. For the kids. You got two boys. According to Pearl, they'll be on oil rigs or down there in a war. So they still need you to stay together, really.
it's a little bit listening to Andrew Tate, where some of it I really don't agree with. I don't agree with the vote stuff. When I hear things like that,
No, Piers, I'm going to convert you. Women shouldn't vote. I will convert you on this.
I think there'll be a lot of people, especially older generation women.
Okay, there is no way, even if you secretly believe that, which you wouldn't. I mean, you're not going to convince him of that. Even if you secretly believe that is Chris fucked, right? If there's one thing Piers Morgan cares about, it's his fucking career. So there is no way he would fuck his career by saying something stupid like women shouldn't vote. He will have an oddity like Pearl Davis,
perhaps, who think, you know what, she's got a point.
Well, I mean, I believe in
like
agency, so
mocker.
I think that if a woman's going to look after her children with divorce, that's absolutely fine. I also believe in your right to speak your mind about it. What I don't understand,
I'd like to say, even before the 1920s,
Do you know what I mean?
women could speak openly. This idea that like women couldn't talk the last 500 years, there have been women
Who
throughout
said that?
history that have
Joan of Arc, Cleopatra, Madam C.J. Walker.
Sorry, Joan of Arc, the one who was burned at the stake as a fucking witch. The one where, like, yeah, she led a rebellion, and then the English went, she's a witch. I think her own side handed her over because they were like, look, you can't have. And they were like, yeah, we can't have a woman in charge anyway. And then they're fucking burning her at the stake and saying she was a fucking witch. This stupid example. Cleopatra, the one who, like, hitched the wagon to the wrong man and ended up having to fucking, like, poison herself with a snake. And then I think her children were killed. These are like terrible fucking examples. I can do good examples, like Elizabeth I, right? Queen Victoria, like women who are actually doing something. You should pick like two of the worst examples. Second of all, that is like those two women is such a good example of the thing that I've been saying about. Don't look at the societies in the round. Was ancient Egypt sexist? Right? Was medieval Europe sexist? Right? She doesn't look at that. Okay, well, there's this woman. What about What about Joan of Arc? Ignore when she gets to about 20 and they burn her at the stake. Because she was pretty young when she was doing all of that too. So ignore all of that. What about the woman who said she was hearing voices of saints in an insanely religious society? So people started following, oh, she's hearing the voice of God. Because she probably had some kind of like schizophrenia or something. Right? Was having very powerful hallucinations. Said she was hearing the voice of God, led a rebellion, and then they ended up getting sick of her and burning her as a witch. As like, oh, see? And you said they were sexist. This girl had severe mental health problems, but thought she was talking to God. So everyone believed her because they're all fucking illiterate peasants. And then eventually, after they got a bit bored of her, they burned her at the stake. So, where's the sexism? Where's the sexism? Oh. Get fucking up. Yay! Some of the women that were burned as witches? Well...
That one feminist, Mary something. There have always been influential women.
That one feminist, Mary something.
Written and been very influential in society.
Okay.
So this idea like women could never do it.
Do you know what I don't understand though is when it gets spiteful, okay? Because you put down a few arguments that I think are perfectly, they're kind of evangelical and they're Christian, but those are your right to say it. What I don't understand is when it kind of seeps into this sort of, you call women fat, you say that they shouldn't have abortions, you say that they have STDs.
The question is, are they fat? Yes or no? The average American woman is 170 pounds. That's objectively overweight.
I mean, let's be honest. We know.
Women do not care about reality. Do you know what it's like to trigger the left and the right?
It's not about women not caring about reality. It's just people don't like it when you call them fat. If you get a man on there, they're like, yeah, fat bastard, you fat fuck. Like, most people are going to get upset with you. This idea, like, again, it's just like, just do it to a fella. Get a fella on the show. Go, listen, you fat fuck. Oh, God, you're disgusting with your rolls hanging out. Make me want to be sick. Ugh, God, you're a whale. And see if he's like, well, I don't care because I'm a dude. Obviously, women would care.
I mean, like, I don't know what to say. This is the thing.
Okay, and let me talk about, should I react to that clip of me calling her fat, obese, and a divorcee? Should I show you guys this clip? Maybe after this. One in the chat if I should go over that one too. But she said, you're not married. You're single, you've never been married. I respond, and I say, well, you're one to talk. You're an overweight baby mama. Or divorcee. I think I corrected it and said divorcee. So my question is, am I mean?
Yeah, so she did manage to get a man to marry her, whereas Pearl, I think her last boyfriend did the red pill thing and left her for a younger, thinner woman. So
I cannot help the results of her life. That's not my fault. That's her fault for making those choices. I didn't even impose a moral judgment on it. I just stated what she was. And then it's crazy because women have this like sister code where if a single mother says I'm not married, I now have no right of rebuttal or reply. I had another woman that called me a red pill doomer on Twitter. She said, you don't have to listen to these red pill doomers. I look great at 31 as opposed to 21, something like that. And I respond and I say, no, you don't. You look better at 21. Now, I could have.
Okay. Pearl is grossly underselling what she did. She went on a fucking tirade for about a week, right? Constantly, going, constantly shitting on women, constantly saying, no, you're old and gross, no, women are old, right? Literally, there were some stunningly beautiful women who are 35, who were just like, yeah, you're ugly. And she was like, no, you're ugly, you're old and washed up, blah, 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 blah. And it's just ridiculous.
Done a poll where men vote. And I also could have gone to a website that ranks them scientifically for what woman they would prefer. Guarantee would all say 21. I don't care what these simps say. They lie to you. Yet,
you don't know. It's it's such nonsense. If you don't fuck yourself over, I think a lot of red pill guys do and get obsessed with young women, not just red pill guys, you see it with the Leonardo DiCaprio thing, right? As you get older, you'll be attracted to an older age range of people. And I mean range, okay? There's always going to be a range. But when I was 20, there weren't that many women in the 40s that I found particularly attractive. And I liked older women. I loved women in the 30s because I liked older women. There's the height of the MILF craze, the post American Pie era. And there were almost no, other than maybe a couple of celebrities, virtually no women over 50 that I would sleep with, essentially. But then as I've gotten older, right, Because a woman, say, of 50 was 30 years older than me back then. But now a woman of 50 is 13 years older than me, right? There are women who I say, yeah, but maybe it's not majority, but there are plenty of women I see who are in the 50s. So I'm like, oh, they're actually still quite hot, right? And, right, then now I look at women who are 20 and I'm kind of like, they kind of look like kids to me. I don't mean like in a pedo way. I don't mean I never sleep with somebody who's 20. But like, that's not mainly what I'm going for. I'm mainly going for probably women in their 30s, right? But I'm now attracted to women who are older than I would have been before, whereas I'm not, and I'm less attracted to the younger ones. Like, you know, I think we all know that most men probably sleep with most women. So it's like, hey, would you sleep with a 20-year-old? Well, yeah, probably. Even when I was 20, we're like, hey, this 50-year-old desperately wants to be on your dick, and we'll be like, okay. But in terms of, like, generally speaking, what you're attracted to, right? Like, your age range, as you get older, will just get older with you. Like, I'm in my 30s, I find women in their 30s most attractive, right? They're around my age group, they don't, right, okay? If I was 20, yeah, they look older. You look at them and you're like, well, I remember when I was 23 and I got with a woman who was 31 and, like, quite attractive. I remember she had kids and I was like, oh, MILF, oh, with a MILF. Whereas now I'm, like, 6 years older than her. So she probably looked young to me. But that's good. As you get older, you want that. You want to be attracted to an older age range. You do not want to be the 45-year-old guy trying to bang 20-year-olds. I promise you, in most cases, it's not going to work. If you're a multi-millionaire, you can get a woman where it's like a prostitute. Well, like, yeah, you're buying her this, you're taking her here, you do expensive holidays, the cars, dresses, handbags, and she'll fuck you. But that's basically a prostitute. It's not somebody who loves you, right? And it just kind of looks sad. Like, you see it sometimes. You see these older dudes trying to get with trying to bang like super young women. It's like, even sometimes I'm in a club, I'll go to, let's go to this club. And I'm like, shit, I want to hit like 19, 20. And it's not like I couldn't talk to any woman there or it would look gross. But it's like, if I'm running around that club talking to, I mean, I'm in a relationship now, but when I was single, talking to like 19, 20-year-olds, it kind of gets a bit like, bro, you're nearly 40, mate. Like, it's a bit, it's not like it's like a pedo thing, it's just a bit pathetic, like you've not grown up, right? Like, it just gets a bit pathetic, right? Again, they're adults, they're consenting, they know what they're doing. Like, when I was 19, I banged a woman who was 40, but, and I knew what I was doing. I wasn't raped. It's not Pete, like, I knew what I was doing, I was an adult. But it's still just a bit like, really? Like, have you not grown up to the point where you want to be with a woman you can have a proper relationship with?
I am the mean one when she attacks me first. A lot of people don't realize I give people back the energy they give me, and a lot of times I am very polite up to a point. But I'm not. I am not here to just let you do whatever. Women are so used to living their lives unchecked. It is crazy.
We don't want to live in reality. We want.
That idea as well, as a side note, is just mental. Like, most women I know are wrapped by, like, this is the problem of, like, somebody like Pearl, who is a very, very, very spoiled rich girl who grew up, like, being handed everything. It's like, most women I know, right, and also was an athlete, was getting accolades and shit at school, right? Most women I know, even, like, I know some super hot women who are wrapped with self-loathing. Like, one of her really good friends, like, she has trouble finding a boyfriend, and she's, like, absolutely banging, right? But it's just like, she doesn't have that, it's like she doesn't know. It's like, oh, I'm not. And it's like, it's just, it's actually nuts, because women get so much rubbish, like so much nonsense constantly. They're made to hate the bodies, the faces, this. It's like so silly to go, women never get checked. Women never get checked. Most of what she says is just, it's just like, it comes from an inability to look at actually data, to look at pictures in the whole. And then it's just like, there's a reason no one else, like, holds these beliefs. Like, even most red pillers don't hate women to the extent that Pearl does.
I don't want to say things that are true. Was she fat? Yes. Was she a divorcee? Yes. These things are just objective facts.
Okay, I'm going to have to objectively...
And she insulted
There's a reason, like, most people hear these views and they're like,
me first. They always...
I'm going to have to objectively end the debate, but it was an interesting conversation. I think we should get you two back together as a matter of urgency.
I had a great time. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, Pearl. Thank you, Ava.
What? The mouse. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm going to react to the next clip.
okay, so, yeah, that's the end of the Pearl one. I'm not going to watch her reacting to the next clip.